In a land far away, in the era of steel and iron. On the night of a lunar eclipse, a child was brought into the world. A healthy, strong little boy, who would grow to become a strong and vicious warrior. This child was born into a family of great men and women, all having a highly respected legacy within their land, but his birth was seen as a curse. His parents believed that he was the reason behind their misfortunes and the family's decline. So, they abandoned him as a baby, leaving him in the wilderness to fend for himself. Surely this child would die without the protection of his family. He grew up in the wild, surviving by his wit and his strength. He learned to hunt and fight like an animal, and his skills grew with each passing day. He learned to trust nothing and to rely only on himself. Eventually he found civilization, meeting other humans, but he never truly grasped social skills. Other people saw him as a wild man, more beast than human. Now a teenager, he traded furs from his hunts for armor and weapons with the townsfolk. A tavern being the only landmark of this town that stood out, everyone called this place Man's Ruin. No one had ever asked the man his name before, so he never felt the need to have one, but an old blacksmith one day insisted on having his name to make a blade for him. Our young hero simply said his name was Ruin and left. Ruin spent years alone in the wilderness, fighting beasts and bandits. He became a local legend. The wild man who fought like an animal, who could disappear into the forest just as quickly as he came. Some even said he wasn't a human at all. As he grew older, Ruin's reputation spread far and wide. His incredible strength and fighting skills were legendary, and many sought to challenge him. Ruin defeated them all, earning the respect of his enemies and the admiration of people. Ruin soon became a feared warrior, known throughout the land for his deadly skills and his unyielding determination. He fought for those who could not fight for themselves, defending the weak and the innocent from those who would harm them. Despite his reputation, Ruin remained a solitary figure, preferring the company of the wild to that of other people. But as he traveled the land, he began to hear stories of a very wealthy family, who were in need of his assistance. Unbeknownst to Ruin, these were the very people who abandoned him as a baby. Ruin, while searching for this wealthy and respected family, encountered a carriage on the road. From 100 meters off he could sense something was wrong with the situation. The carriage driver was fidgety, hiding something. Ruin made polite conversation with the driver, obviously nervous and clutching the reins so tight, his hands turning red. Then a muffled scream of a young boy came piercing from the back of the carriage. Ruin drew his blade before the driver could react and held the point to his throat. Then the carriage doors flew open. Two men with short swords came rushing out and attacking Ruin. Our hero dispatching them in a violent dance of swordplay, the carriage driver snapping the reins, trying to flee. Ruin without hesitation, sending a throwing knife into the back of his head, the carriage slowly coming to a stop as the driver fell dead onto the road. Ruin climbed into the carriage and found a young boy, wearing fine but ragged clothes, hands bound and mouth gagged. He untied the child and told him the men who held him were dead. Ruin asked where the boy was from so he could return him to his home. The boy explained how long he had been with his kidnappers, that it may take weeks to make it back home. Ruin and the boy took the carriage and began their journey, leaving the bodies of the three men on the road as a message to others. Days turned into weeks. The boy grew on Ruin. This was the most he had spoken to another person in his entire life. Stories of Ruin's adventures and upbringing had the young boy in awe. Then one day, just around noon, the carriage arrived at this grand estate, gated with marble pillars, guards with pikes stationed on the perimeter. The guards amazed to see the boy, alerting the family immediately. The carriage pulling into the courtyard of the estate, the grand door opening and a group of people in the finest clothes came rushing out. A woman falling to her knees and embracing the young boy, the boy told them Ruin had killed the men and saved him. The family thanking Ruin and asking him where he came from. Ruin explained that he was from the wilds, that he had no home, no family or ever a real name. He explained that he thinks he's 30 winters old but not sure. He had been on his own since as far as he could remember. Eyes widened amongst the group, some but not all. An elderly man came forward and shook Ruin's hand, and took him away from the group. The elderly man explained that many years ago, he abandoned his baby in the wilderness. Wise men and women said this child was a bad omen. He had always regretted his actions, but it was for the family. Ruin staggered back from the man, holding back his anger, debating on striking the old man, but that would just prove him right, that Ruin was simply a bad omen for the family. He calmed himself and asked, "Did I even have a name?" The old man simply shook his head no. Ruin without a word climbed onto the carriage, waving to the boy and snapping the reins, the horse marching forward. And with that, Ruin left the rich estate and continued back to his life as the lone warrior from the wilds. And Sir Ruin learned the truth of his origins. He was born under a bad omen, and his family had believed that he was the cause of their troubles. But Ruin did not let this knowledge weigh him down. He had forged his own path, becoming a legend in his own right. Ruin continued to travel the land, fighting for what was right and defending those who could not defend themselves. His name became known throughout the land, and people told stories of his incredible strength and his unyielding determination. In the end, Ruin became more than just a warrior. He became a legend, a symbol of hope and courage for all who faced adversity. And though he had been abandoned as a baby, he had forged his own destiny, becoming a true hero in his own right.